Hello YouTube friends, welcome to Reference Tuesday, episode 3. I'm your host as usual, Robin, and here we are going to talk about coloring. So since this is not going to follow exactly the reference, but I'm just going to show you how I color so we can make this into a finished piece. So my example piece would be something that I did before, which is, there you go. Okay, so here's the final piece that we're going to try to emulate. So today we're going to talk about how to paint a grayscale image like this, especially when you have no color reference, and turn it into something like this. Okay, so let's begin. First we have our, where is it? Okay, here's our color layer. Right, yes, here's the line art layer. There's the color layer. I'm going to name this line art. I'm going to name this values. Okay, in Krita, if you have your values correct, you can go change this thing from normal to color. Then you can add whatever color you want, and the values in the bottom won't be too much affected. Okay, so this is the process on how I usually paint at my speed painting, which is I separate the line art and the bottom part first, then I overpaint them together. So the first things you have to know about face is this, for coloring as well. You need to imagine a situation. Imagine that you're painting Audrey Hepburn in a room, right? You have the lighting already set up, but you don't know the color yet. Imagine in the room, what sort of lighting color do you want? Then what sort of shadow color do you want? It's like in movies where, okay, let me draw it here. So it's like in the movies you don't use the entire color spectrum. It's a rare occurrence to use that unless you use it in a rainbow or something. Usually you have a palette. So for example, my usual palette that I usually like to draw with for my characters is usually this. Okay, so usually there's some orange. Okay, so usually my favorite palette is usually this, an orange palette. Then I do a complementary color. In Krita, the color wheel is kind of weird, so you don't really get to see the complementary color correctly here. You can check in Adobe Colors in the internet. If I can, I'll link the link in the description below. Then you can find out like complementary colors and stuff like that. Normally, the basic complementary colors that I usually know and remember is red is with green, orange is with blue, yellow is with purple, and blah blah blah. So my favorite color palette when I use is orange and purple. Why do I like to use this also? It's because this is a warm color, right? This is a cool color. So remember that. In considering colors, always remember like the warmth and then the color combination. So I choose this because this resembles the skin a lot, and then I'm going to choose this purple here because it's interesting. It's a complementary color, and I like these two combinations because it's usually seen in sunsets, right? That's why. And to add a third color, I'm gonna take something in between. I'll take red. Then afterwards, you start to paint on top of this. So now we have our color layer on top of our values, right? So now, to make it easier for us, I'm going to duplicate the values and I'm going to merge this one. Now we have a merged values, and then we group them together in Krita. This is the color layer on top here, color. Then I press this A thing here so we can make it a clipping mask. Now we color. Don't be limited to only what the palette says. Try to not go too crazy unless you know what you're doing. So keep it here, around here, but occasionally go here. Yeah, let me demonstrate it to you so you can like know what I'm talking about. So here you see it feels like the color of the skin is way too saturated, right? So if you feel it's way too saturated, you can dial it back. Usually the safe spot is around here, half of the triangle usually. There we go. Now it looks less crayon-like. I heard from... Who's this guy again? Let me try to find him later. He says that grays communicate better with each other. That's why use grays more, like drag it more here if needed, so the colors can communicate better. For example, now I'm gonna go with the red, right? But of course I'm not gonna go here. I'm going to go a bit here, go a bit to the left, and now we're gonna go with this as the... Oh, okay, this is interesting. I'm gonna go red here and just paint over some parts of it, right? I keep forgetting that in the color mode, your brightness and your lights and darks don't really matter. What matters is your saturation. So yeah, this is gonna be a bit tricky at first, but don't worry about it. You can fix it later in the Overpaint, okay? I put red in like this color, the red. I try to put it in pretty obvious spots, like for example, the nose, for example, the nose is red since it has blood over it. Like this whole part here is actually going to be red later. Then the ears are also red. Remember, blood flows a lot to the nose and the ears. Remember drunk people. If you forget, just remember drunk people. Or just take a look at your own ears. It'll be red usually. Then the lips, I guess. Then I usually go with a bit of blue down here. Oh, that's way too much. I'll lower the opacity so it blends a bit. So if you've seen a few tutorials on the internet, you can see that for the colors of the face, usually the face is separated into 3 areas, right? So in the bottom it's blue, in the middle it's red, in the top one it's yellow. It's generally like that. It's not exactly like that, but it's generally like that. If you go for extreme color settings, then don't use these colors, but in a general sense it usually works that way. Okay. So after you've like got the basic colors down, now I go to the Overpaint layer. Since we already get more or less a good general value and stuff like that, and we already get like okay values, now we can go crazy and go with the Overpaint. Because I'm lazy at fixing my line art, I usually overpaint on top of the line art immediately because that's faster for me. If you guys have like a process, like a more careful process, it can turn out neater and better. So it's a preference of people actually. So now I'm going to try to blend like some stuff here. If there's something that's not right, take it from the color palette and go here. Okay. Now as you can see, the nose is actually not red, it's kind of pink. So I'm gonna go with more red here, drag it more saturated colors, and paint red on top of it. Yeah, now it kind of looks like red low. Okay. Now since we have a more limited palette, we can it's more safer to play with a limited palette, so you don't really mess things up too much. Because if you mess things up too much, you will eventually go bonkers, and your final result is usually not too good. Oh, my phone just rang well. Okay. Also pay attention to the reference. Like if there's some lighting that's wrong, you can fix it by looking at the reference on the right. Okay. Eesh, this is problematic. For now, usually in this stage of when I approach paintings, I don't focus too much on the heavy lighting sources yet. Heavy lighting sources, or like really colorful lighting sources, you can what's the right word? You can implement that later in the overlay process. I'll talk about that later, okay? If you want to like learn more about coloring, especially like the planes of the face for females, I suggest you look at do like a final rendered females. You want to see the planes and stuff like that. I suggest you see like makeup videos, to be honest. Makeup videos, and like if you know the rules of makeup, they're actually like accentuating and de-accentuating certain things, right? In girls, so you can like know what plane are you on, and you can know like, oh, this plane needs to be darker, this plane needs to be brighter, and stuff like that. You learn a lot in makeup, trust me. That's how I usually learn some of my stuff. Like for instance, in the nose here, you have contour, right? You have a contour, so you can like, okay, here's the contour. What would I do if I were a makeup artist? I'd contour that place. Okay, there you go. Stuff like that. Some simple stuff like that. It can help you out. Help you with your drawing tremendously. Okay. So pay attention with the planes. You see like, oh, there's a shadow here. Now we'll just take a shadow from here and blah. And then oh, like the chin's kinda sharp here. Blah. Okay. It's not going to be exactly the same, but that's okay. You don't have to do it exactly the same, no. It's your rendition, so with your purpose in mind, you choose how you want to do it. Just be mindful of what you're doing. That will make you grow as an artist even faster than just painting randomly, okay? For coloring the hair, pay attention, again, pay attention to where the flow of the hair is. If you pay attention with the flow of the hair and like, oh, there are also details that you have to omit or details that you'd like to keep. Remember that when shading hair, because sometimes you don't have to shade, you don't have to show the full hair strands. Sometimes you do, it all depends. Usually hair is a big blob of volume first, then you add the accents later, usually. So like this. You add the accents later and then you just... But if you do too much of the accents, your hair can look a little weird. So do it sparingly, do it softly. That's how I usually do it. If you want to do it like a really hardcore version, all the power to you. It's all good. So for example, now I think, oh, I need to do some strand things. Now lower the brush setting and just live on with it. Just get over it. Pay attention to this. There's this U thing that's going on, usually in the hair, that I've noticed in drawings and more realistic stuff. Then, okay, as you can see, I did a wrong measurement, so here. Always remember your measurements. So if anything is wrong, you can check again. Hopefully you do it right. I'm terrible at copying, to be honest. But here we go, something like this, right? Oh, and for the lips, always remember the curvature of the lips. Like, are the lips kind of smiling? Are the lips kind of frowning? That is very important. This is a detail that usually maybe people don't notice that much, but just to change Just a slight change in the tip of the lips, that can change everything. Okay. We have something like this now, right? If you want to blend, just lower the opacity, okay? Usually I lower the opacity to about 50%-ish. I lower it to 50%-ish and just shade normally. Oh, and if you think that there's something wrong with your painting, for example, like, oh, it's a bit lanky, it's not that good, like some parts are not proportionate enough, you can fix that later in the liquefying process. So you don't really have to worry too much. Thank goodness it's digital, right? Yeah. I rotated it accidentally. Sorry. This is gonna take a while usually. Don't worry about it. Okay. So now you have something like this. I can go on and try to perfect this thing, but I'm not going to, because I'm going to waste too much of your time. So after I'm done with this, right, I'm mostly done with the coloring, the base coloring, the value, matching the values as well. For example, okay, I think, yeah, the bottom of the jaw usually has some shadow in it. So I'm gonna add that right now, for instance. Okay. Now, when I've got, my priority is basically I'm going to make the proportions kind of okay. I'm going to try to make the proportions and the values okay. That is the important thing. Proportion and values. Right? So if it's already like okay, you think it's good already now. Now we're going to go straight to the overlay phase. So what is the overlay phase? The overlay phase is when now she's in base lighting, right? Audrey Hepburn is in the most basic lighting ever. There's nothing crazy, not much going on. You can keep the drawing in this state if you want to, but I usually add this overlay stage because I want to do some crazy stuff. So check the color palette here. I want to make the color palette this and this, orange and pink. So now I go with orange. I choose in the overlay mode, light and dark is light and dark, not like multiply where it all goes dark, not like color dodge where it all goes light. It's light and dark, light and dark. So now I'm gonna focus on the lights first. I'll keep the opacity kind of low because I don't want it to be too high yet. Now, if you feel like it's not too good, like in this part, it's definitely gonna be super bright, right? Just shade it up. This is the good thing about overlay is when you do a shine on areas like these, the colors can change and it'll make a pretty cool effect, like a pretty cool sunbeam effect. I love it. See? Now you have to pay attention to the reference again on where the light shines. And if you feel like, oh, it's too hard, now it's the time for softening the brush. There we go. Now it has a more airbrush-like feel, which is more suitable to this kind of lighting. I use the airbrush, then I just erase parts where I don't want the light to hit. Right, so here. Then I use this again. Ooh, this turned out quite different from the first try, so looks actually pretty interesting now. It's a bit more alive, I think, since it's been weeks since I did this. Okay, now I'm going to go another layer so I don't mess this up. I move to overlay again. Why don't I use multiply or color dodge yet? Usually I'll use multiply and color dodge in the later versions. Like, I want it super bright or I want it super dark. Overlays just like for a darkening or lightening and for a recoloring. So now, oops, So now I'm going to just pick this color, make it a bit dark, then shade it up. There we go. The shadows. So good. There we go. We've got some colorful looking shadows with purple. Looks good. If you know makeup, usually girls love to put a blush on here, right? So I'm going to do so. I'm going to add a blush on here as a shadow. And if it's too weird, I'm going to just shave it off a bit here. So if there's still something that's wrong before the color dodge and multiply stage, I will overpaint again. I really love like overpainting and doing these stuff. You can, of course, you can just do more digital technical stuff, but it's just a matter of preference. I really like it when you paint and then it feels so calm. It feels like it's like you're, how do you say it? A catharsis or something like that? Yeah, when you try to paint normally. Okay. Also, be confident when you paint. When you notice that there's a mistake, don't put yourself down for it. It's probably something you haven't learned or you haven't implemented correctly. You just have to just learn and learn and learn. Okay, I'm going to fix like the planes and smoothen out some stuff here at this point. If you don't want to smooth it, it's fine. Some people like it hard. Some people like it hard. Alright, something like this. Yeah. If you want, you can add an ambient light, by the way. If you don't know what an ambient light is imagine you're in the room, right? You got the shadows already, you got the lighting already, but you can also like imagine like in the room there are some objects, there are some like the objects are something like not necessarily the object actually. It can be the sky, it can be the ceiling, it can be anything that affects the character, affects the color of the character. So I can add another overlay again. I love overlays. Then if I want to add like a blue, like, okay, this is under a sky. So I'm going to add a bit blue here as a rim light a bit. So you can add the ambient light in the shadows. Essentially, you're brightening the shadows a bit, or you're like affecting some of the colors a bit, so it doesn't see. So it's not a pure yellow. It's not a pure pink anymore. It has hints of blue in it, like it's affected by the background. These are things you can keep into consideration to make your painting look more realistic, if you will. Then it's the stage we've been waiting for, the color dodge stage, and multiply stage. I learned this from, who's his name again? Mohammed Agbadi. So you should check his YouTube channel out. It really helps. His tips really helped me to make this. So he says, if you want to do the color dodge thing, you should decrease the brightness of your chosen color, make it darker than the center point, and make it a little bit more saturated. This way, your color dodge will look something like this. Oh yeah. Even though the guy uses Photoshop, but he's not wrong. It looks really good. So remember, use this sparingly. If you know what you're doing, use it. So since this is a lightening effect, you have to put it at the right places. You already have the lightening effect from the overlay, so you just need to use this sparingly enough. Don't just put it everywhere. No, that'll make your drawing look more messy than it has to. Okay. So you can see I'm erasing some of the stuff here so I can like decrease the amount of super bright stuff and control where my light is supposed to be. Now we go with the multiply. He also says something about multiply, which is if you use multiply, you choose a desaturated color and choose the color above the center point. So here, let me demonstrate. There we go. So I'm going to say this as a reminder to myself. I will link. Who should I link? In the description below. Okay. I'm going to link Mohammed Agbadi. And I'm going to link the Adobe Color thing. Alright, so you guys can use it. You guys can learn exactly how it's used. Mohammed is a really great artist, and I see him almost every day, I think, nowadays. He makes great art tutorials as well. See, it shows that you don't really need too much of a thing to make it look good. Just keep it okay. And the style that I'm going for is kind of colorful, as you can see. So if you're not a fan of these kind of things, you can always choose your own color palette. So now, with all things done, it's back again to the overpaint. So why do I keep on overpainting these things? Like, I know you don't really have to, but I find personally that if I overpaint, like there are some things that we can't control during the lighting stage, like the blending and stuff like that. It's pretty difficult for me to control. So I control it again in the overpaint stage. So now you see I keep my opacity really low. You see up there it's 23% because I want to blend these things. So now it looks freakishly soft. Always make sure your values are correct by checking the right part of the reference image. You see that most of my time is actually more towards the blending phase. So if you put your colors correctly, like you already know the spots on where your colors are, then blending is a no-brainer, it's fine. But if you blend without knowing where your colors are supposed to be, typically I find it's more difficult, because if you don't know where your structure is and you blend, you will lose the planes. See what I'm doing here now? I'm trying to reinforce the plane. So I'm adding a bit of light and contrasting it, making sure I don't overblend. There you are. Now we have a finished product. So I know it's way different than the example, but I think we did an okay job. So to recap, as usual, the things that we have to do during coloring phase. Let me switch this to the hard one, because if I use the soft one, it'll look weird. Hey, so to recap, the things that we need to do while coloring. First is, if you use the value scale, right, you add the color layer on top of it if you use the value scale. Sometimes I do, mostly I don't, because I'm usually like, okay, I choose this and blah 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 blah. But if you're like not sure of the values yet, you can do that as a safety measure. Second is the overpaint. Oh my goodness, wrong layer. Second is overpaint. And I overpaint a lot since I like to correct things a lot. Third is overlay. Overlay with the light and the dark. And remember, we color it. So light, dark, and color. Remember this, because this is not the extreme one. The next one is, again, I'm just gonna call overpaint OP, because overpaint is OP. So OP, then we go color dodge and multiply. Color dodge, multiply. Finally, OP again. Here's my color process. Maybe your color process is much simpler. Like a lot of digital artists don't use a complicated color process like this. Usually they do solid. After the solid, they do the lasso tool, they do the blur, whatever. I just like to do this because, in my personal opinion, it's like painting. I like a more painterly feel in my drawings, so yeah. After the overpaint, after all this, of course you can also not stop here after the overpaint, right? You can go with filters, you can add like a gradient map, whatever. So you can also, let me show you something that I usually do to finish the painting. Here you have a filter layer, right? You have a filter layer. Since my, I don't know what this is, it's like 1.2 gigabytes, it's gonna be a bit slow. Usually what I do is I check the levels. So if I think, okay, I don't know, let's see the levels. Drag the black up here, see what happens. Does it get any better? If you simplify the levels, does it get any better? You can check here, for example, like this. It works, yeah. If it works, you don't have to go too crazy. You don't have to. But if it works, it works. Then, for example, what I usually like to do is go to the filter layer. Again, I go with this color balance thing. Check the shadows. Do I really need to switch it up? It's a color preference thing, so if you don't want to do it, it's fine. Let me decrease the opacity a bit. Yeah, okay, there. So the left one here is my finished piece. I hope you guys learned something. We're finally at the end of referencing Audrey Hepburn, since we've already got to the coloring stage. and the filter stage as well. So thank you all for being here with me for these 3 reference Tuesday episodes. Next Tuesday, we're going to reference something else. If you guys have any idea on what you want to reference, please write down in the comments below. If not, then I'll go find something else to reference, and I'm going to share my painting process again with you guys. Thank you guys for watching. I'm your host, Robin, and I'll see you in the next Reference Tuesday. Goodbye. Have a nice day. Please like and subscribe to see more of content like this. Okay? Bye.